Welcome to your City Council meeting, informational meeting. This is the 4 o'clock March 18th meeting. There is going to be, I'll start out right away with a correction to this agenda. Item number 6, the executive session is going to be pulled. We will not have an executive session at this time. It'll be rescheduled for a later date. That being said, we're going to start out with reports, and we're going to start with Lori Hogstead, the city clerk, please. Lori?
Great. All right, thank you, City Council. Just a few election updates that I wish to share with you today. First of all, we have our sample ballots. Those came in on Friday morning actually. And the sample ballots are available here at the Carnegie Town Hall for anyone that may want to pick them up. They are on our city's website at www.siouxfalls.org. Search for 2014 elections. They are available at the Instructional Planning Center, the Minnehaha County Auditor's Office, the main library downtown, and all of the branch libraries. And so please take a look at the sample ballot. One thing that's nice, even though it's quite full, is that we were able to get the list of the vote centers on the back of the sample ballot. So we're trying to promote that over and over and over again, Councilor Anderson, so that people know exactly where they need to go on election day. So that's our sample ballot. Absentee voting will begin on Monday, the 24th. That is the date that we had determined previously. We're hoping maybe we could get those ready a little bit sooner, but I tell you what, with this full ballot we have and trying to get everything done and prepared and ready for it, the 24th it will be. And so we will have absentee voting down at the county auditor's office, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Saturday, before the election, we will be open down there from 8 to noon for absentee voting. Any questions on that, certainly give our office a call, 367-8080, or again, check our website. We will be sending out a press release later this week, giving more information and more details on absentee voting. In addition to that, as far as for the citizens, we also have our election maps available, and this will also show the vote centers and the location throughout the city. And then on the back, it shows the vote centers with the bus routes going to the vote centers. And we also shared this with the SAM, the transit company in Sioux Falls, and they are going to make sure and post that on their buses and so on, so that people riding on the buses can see exactly where they would need to get off or where they would need to go to vote on election day if they're not able to get there by their own means. So those two items are available. And then also on the 24th, that will be the deadline to register to vote for this election of April 8th. Again, there's registration forms on the table and available at various locations, and those are also on our website, and they're also linked to the Secretary of State's website, or they can call us and we can assist the voters with filling out their application as well. Election schools. This is the good part. We have our workers hired, and it was a quiet day. Nobody called in to change, so we think we have our list finalized. We do have some on standby, though, because something always happens. But anyway, our school for our 145 approximately workers will be Thursday and Friday. Thursday it will begin at 10. There's one session at 10, one session at 1, and one session at 6 p.m. And then Friday we have a session at 10 and a session at 1. And we will meet in here with the workers, go through a slideshow. Denise and I will be giving the training. Tamara will be taking care of Board of Equalization. So Denise and I will be conducting the training. And then the Secretary of State, Jason Gant, will be here along with some of his team. And when we finish in here, then we will go into the multipurpose room and have our training on the e-poll books. And they will conduct that training, and we'll be here for all 5 sessions. So that's great. Let's see. Oh, one more thing. I just wanted to show you part of what we have to do for elections is a number of publications, and of course all those publications have to be done as designated by state law, and certain things have to be published at certain times. Well, now that we're getting close, 3 weeks from today is our election. On the 27th of March and the 3rd of April, we have to publish a notice of election, and that will explain what exactly is on the ballot to the citizens. We also will have to publish our election map listing the vote centers and everything that's on the ballot. So our normal publication, if we want to call it normal, would be this front page, which consists of the map, the notice of election, and then the sample ballot. And hopefully you can see that. This is just the proof. We just got it today, so we need to go through and give them our A-OK. Now, it ends up that this is going to be a separate supplement for those 2 days, and it's going to end up being 12 pages long. And the reason is we have to publish the 2 referred ordinances in their entirety. And so the next 11 pages consists of the entire Shape Places rezoning ordinance, and that takes up about 11 and a half pages. And you can see that's just one page. And when we get to the very last page, and thank goodness we could email it and they could paste it into there, because proofing that would take us days. It also includes maps, as you can see, a nice map, and they did have to charge us the color cost because we have color maps in here, and you can't do part of it at the cost of color and part of it at the cost of black and white. And then the second ordinance, the rezoning, is just this small section on the bottom. So I just wanted to share that with you, and we have to publish this twice. So we will have our own insert in the paper on the 27th of March and also on April 3rd. When we budgeted for the election, a lot of the big ordinances that the City Council adopts were able to, in the newspaper, instead of putting the entire ordinance, for instance, the building code revisions, the electrical code, those kind of things, we can actually put in a notice of fact of adoption, which is a one-page form. Well, we were hoping in this case that we could publish a notice of fact of adoption for this election, but in reviewing the election laws, it was determined by not only by us and our city attorney, but by the Secretary of State, that we actually had to publish it in its entirety. And so that will be a substantial cost that we'll have to make up at some point in our election budget. But I just wanted you to know, when you see a separate insert, that's what that's about. So we'll have that twice. Otherwise, everything's on schedule, on track. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Lori? Yes, Michelle?
The obvious one, how much is that going to cost?
We are still getting the numbers from the Argus Leader at this point. This is our proof that she just delivered today, and we need to get back to her by tomorrow morning, because even though it's a week from Thursday, with something this large, they have to get it all set up. There's a lot of work to it. So I should have those numbers, how much that will cost for each publication, probably next week or the week after. If I look at what we pay now, we pay $5 for a column inch. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of a deal, but again, they do have to charge us the color cost for printing in color.
For 12,
so it'll be
12 full pages of
12
a
full
newspaper.
pages.
Wow.
Pardon me, Rex?
Might as well make it a little more attractive, put some color in it someplace on all the other pages too.
Yeah, we're adding color wherever possible, yes.
Are there any other questions for Lori? Yes, Councilor Karski?
You said 145 workers, is that correct?
Yes, 145. We are going to have 11 election workers at each vote center. And what will happen is you come in, the first person you will see is a greeter. They will welcome you to the vote center and direct you where you need to go. And the first place you'll need to go is to the table that will have the e-poll books in this, and there will be 6 e-poll books and 6 workers, and we'll have 2 extra e-poll books if needed. And so the greeter will send you to the shortest line and get you through there, and then you will get your receipt as far as what ballot style you will receive, and then you will next go to the ballot clerk table, and there are going to be 2 ballot clerks, as there will be 6 ballot types, and there'll be, the ballots will be this size, the same size as a sample ballot. And so there will be 6 ballots. So the ballot clerk, one will be in charge of ballots 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 4, 5, and 6. They will give you your ballot style. And then we will have approximately 33 different places that a voter can go vote. We will have approximately 14 voting machines along the wall. We will have an auto mark, which is for, assisted voting on the ballot. We will have some plywood dividers that the Sioux Falls School District built on certain tables. And then in addition to that, we still felt we needed more. And so we were borrowing some cardboard dividers from the county auditor's office as well. And so once the citizen is done voting, and just to back up a minute, we figured that's where the bigger holdup would be. You know, they can get through pretty quick with the e-poll book and everything, getting their ballot. But then as long as the ballot is, we don't want people to be waiting and waiting to vote because it will take a little time to go through it. And so that's why we have so many locations to vote within each vote center. And then when you're done, you will go to the ballot table, you know, with your privacy sleeve, insert your ballot, and we will have a comment card if you wish to comment on anything about your experience. We love to get that feedback, and then we send you on your way.
If I could, Chair?
Please.
That was kind of my concern with the poll books, how it would work. And the old way, you walk in, somebody checks your ID, they flip the pages of the book, they put a stamp in there that you were there. So, and there's only one person that could do that at each location.
Right.
So you're going to have
We're going to have six checking people in.
Wow. Okay.
And I think it will go really well because the first thing they'll ask you is for your ID, and you can present your driver's license or an identification card issued by the state with your picture on it, a tribal identification card, a passport, or the fourth one is a student identification card that has your picture on it. For the photo IDs, for the driver's license, there's a scanner, and they just scan it, and your name pops up just like that. And then they'll say, okay, your ballot style number 1, or however they're going to say it. If for some reason you have a different form of ID, what they'll probably do is enter in just your last name and maybe the first initial of your first name and find you right away. If a citizen would forget their ID, there is a personal an affidavit for personal identification that they can fill out, because we don't want to send anyone away if they say, oh shoot, I left it at home. You know, I know exactly where it is. Well, let's have you fill this out, because if someone leaves, are they actually going to come back? We don't want anyone to leave that has come to vote. So that's another option that we have. And then, of course, we have the emergency voter card. If they insist they're a registered voter and we just can't find them, we have a provisional ballot. So there's a lot of options for citizens to vote and have the opportunity to vote. And, you know, some of those might take a little bit longer, but hopefully the greeter can, you know, get people through the lines fairly quickly that are moving fast.
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And of course, key on all of this is that you're going to be able to vote at any one of the vote centers, not in your
Right.
specific precinct.
Right,
Correct, Lori?
any one of them, and that's the beauty of using the e-poll books, is that it will automatically, you know, mark your name in the system. So it will, you know, you would only be able to vote at one location, obviously, and it would mark your name right away and show that you had voted. But yes, you can go to any location, and we're really trying to stress that even near where you work. You know, downtown people will have the arena, First Lutheran Church. There's just a lot of options for voting locations.
Sue, please.
Lori, have there been any other surprises as far as costs? And can you remind us what we had budgeted as a council for this election?
Sure. You know, costs, we haven't really totaled everything up yet. I know Dave Bixler is going to be giving a report when the election is finished, and he will present to you what the total cost of the election will be. And, you know, it will be a little bit more because we're printing many ballots, 115,000 ballots. That's a lot of ballots. But again, we don't want to run out. We want to make sure we have enough, and that's what the Secretary of State recommended, the county auditor recommended. And, you know, I'm grateful for their recommendations to me, and of course take that to heart. And we want to make sure we have enough ballots. We're also adding a little bit more staffing. We're going to have runners that day that will be in charge of quadrants, and they're city staff, but we will be paying their overtime and that type of thing. And as far as our total budget, I'm going to have to look at Dave here a minute. Thank you. $130,000 is our total budget, but that also includes the secondary election, and the chances of having a secondary are pretty slim. We would have to have a dead heat tie in the mayoral race because that requires 50% plus 1, and we would have to have a dead heat tie in the at-large council member A. Thank you. We would have to have a three-way tie there because the winner of that would have to have 34% of the vote. So the chances of a secondary are, you know, pretty slim, I would say, at this point. So we would have that, and of course, Dave will work through the budget and make sure that everything comes out correctly, and then give you that presentation when we're finished.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Lori? Lori, also, I did receive a copy of your election plan for 2014 in detail, as you sent to all of us, 25 pages. So it's quite a document. So thank you for all of your
Sure.
hard work and your team also.
You bet. That was fun to put together. It took a lot of time, but I think it was well worth all the time that I spent on it. So,
Great. Thank you very much.
yes.
The next report we'll have is from Jim David, our Legislative Operations Manager. Good afternoon, Jim.
Good afternoon, Jim David, council staff. South Dakota Legislature is in recess, but will reconvene on March 31st to consider any bills that have been vetoed by the governor. I'm happy to report that 2 of your legislative priorities have been approved by the legislature, each by wide margins. Senate Bill 91, which allows local government the ability to restrict carrier licenses, passed both houses overwhelmingly, and then last week was signed by the governor. House Bill 1177 was heavily amended in conference committee to become a straight prohibition against texting while driving. Even though the final product is a secondary offense carrying a $100 fine, local governments will retain their ability to be stricter. Sioux Falls' primary offense, texting ban, and careless driving ordinance will remain intact. I would like to publicly thank Yvonne Taylor and the Municipal League, who shepherded Senate Bill 91 through the process and was on the front line defending home rule during the texting debates. Yvonne did comment multiple times that the one-on-one conversations and emails that came from each of you had made a huge impact in swaying those area legislators. And finally, just a reminder that the Municipal League District meeting is scheduled for April 10th at 6 o'clock in the T Event Hall. Please let me know if you'd like to attend that event.
Great. Are there any questions for Jim? Councilor Karski?
Jim, last fall when we were discussing our legislative priorities, we had mentioned about getting an earlier start on them this year. What's our calendar look like?
The thought is
the legislative session just ended, but
Sure.
never too early to begin again, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We had looked at starting in June, I think, because those meetings that we all go, or that many of you go to peer, those policy meetings, they are in August. So I think the process is we could do like a provisional legislative priority list to get us through that date, and then the council could approve a final list at the end of the year in case anything should come up. So that was the plan for that.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Are there any more questions for Jim? There being none, Jim, thank you very much. Thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is Public Services Committee, and Chairman Kenny Anderson. Do you have a report, Kenny?
Yes, I do, Chair. Thank you. Public Services Committee met last Tuesday, March 11th. The only thing on our agenda was the vehicle for hire ordinance. It's something that the committee has worked very hard on for the last year, and I think that we've finally gotten to a point where we would like to bring this to the City Council. Jim David, our Legislative Operations Manager, reviewed a PowerPoint presentation illustrating some of the proposed changes to the ordinance. Some of the discussions were about vehicle markings, driver prohibitions, and especially sealing the taxi meters. The discussion continued with Keith Adelstein, spoke regarding enforcement of the proposal and ordinance changes. He stated that the road issues would be handled by law enforcement and the regulatory issues would be handled by the licensing specialist. We will use code enforcement officers to actually do inspections in the offices to inspect the paperwork to make sure that they are up to city code. After a discussion on the timeline for bringing this ordinance to the council, it was decided that and voted on, and the first reading for the item will be April 1st, 2014, with a second reading scheduled for April 15th. The reasons for this is that we felt that the hard work of the committee and the committee members, one that will be gone after the election. And Sue, I would much thank you for the work that you've done, and Councilman Karski and Councilor Erfenbach. It's been a long road, but I think that we see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we also want the comments and any advice from the other city council members on this also. And we felt that this was the right time to bring this to the council so that we could get something set before we change over to a new council. Some of the new items that came up, I feel can be addressed at a later time as we work forward and amend this ordinance as we move this forward. So once again, I want to thank the council members, our staff, and the taxi companies, the owners. They got very involved in this, and as I think the council saw, there was an email from a couple of company owners. I think they will stay very well involved in this, and I think that we'll come out with something that will fit Sioux Falls. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. Are there any questions for Councilor Anderson? Good, thank you. We're going to move on to our presentations. And Director Cooper, if you want to come forward, introduce your guests and kick it off for us. Thank you.
Open discussion. You're sure it's okay to go ahead?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll shuffle it around. Catch you at the end.
All right, thank you. Mike Cooper, Planning and Building Services. Today we were going to be presenting the 2014 Sculpture Walk recommendations. And just a little background, this is the 11th year of Sculpture Walk for Sioux Falls. It's grown from 34 sculptures back in 2004 to 55. And during the history of our Sculpture Walk, we've displayed 507 different sculptures. For this current Sculpture Walk program, there were 131 entries received, and those were juried by the Sculpture Walk Committee. We're represented by 3 different countries and 21 states. There are 5 sculpture artists from South Dakota, and there are 15 new artists in this year's program. Again, the sculptures will be taken down in April and replaced in May with the new exhibits. Jim Clark will be presenting to you today the recommendations for 55 pieces along with 10 alternates. Sculpture Walk, when they get to you, they've gone through quite a bit of vetting process. In addition to the Sculpture Walk Committee, there's several city departments involved, Human Services, the ADA Accessibility Review Board, the Engineering Division of Public Works, Risk Management, Planning, along with the Visual Arts Commission. And all of those take a look at these as part of the recommendation process. We will be asking you to act on this tonight as item 35 on the City Council agenda. And one last thing, Councilor Kauschke, you had asked, last year there was approximately 1,500 ballots turned in for Sculpture Walk. And we use that to select the People's Choice Award, which we purchase each year. So with that quick introduction, Jim Clark, who's the director of Sculpture Walk, is going to go through the recommendations, and Diane DeCoyer with the planning staff is going to make sure that he does them very quickly. So I'll turn it over to those two. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you. I'm Jim Clark, Director of Sculpture Walk. Good to be here again, my 11th time. It's hard to believe. We've had so many sculptures go through Sioux Falls. It's a lot of lifting, a lot of moving, a lot of fundraising, and a lot of fun overall. Diane says that the PowerPoint's a little slow tonight, so I have about 65 or so slides to show you. And as soon as, I think in the interest of time and shortening this up, that maybe what I should do instead of, our sites are pretty much the same as they've been for the last few years. We have maybe one new site, which is on Main Avenue. We're trying to get a few more on Main, and we're up into Uptown and also on East 8th Street. So what I'll do is, in the sculptures that you're going to see tonight, some of them have already changed from the time I presented it to the Visual Arts Commission. We had a couple of them drop out. So then we had to get a couple of alternates to replace them, and then when we do that, then the site's changed. So what I'll do is I'll just show you the sculptures, tell you what side of the street they'll be on, and then we can move forward. And hopefully that will help Diane moving forward. And as soon as we do one, and some of these I need to explain that the photos that you're seeing are the photos that we got from the artists when they entered Sculpture Walk. So like this first one is from Jacques Frazee from Millbank, and it's actually sitting on its side in his shop. It's going to be a big sculpture. He does big work. His sculpture this last year was the butterfly on the northwest corner of 10th and Phillips. So he's a big guy that does big work. And this one's going to be up by the pavilion. So we always start at the pavilion, then we go up into Uptown, 8th Street, come back, and we end up in front of Minerva's. And D. Clements, he's been with us so many years. He's got a couple of sculptures. Paul Revere will be on Main Avenue. And these are around 11th Street. Blustery Day will be in front of Home Federal. Greg Johnson from Georgia. Josh Schlegg, he's a new artist, a student actually in Hartford. And his instructor contacted me about this kid, this great artist, developing artist. I said, well, have him enter Sculpture Walk, and here's what we have. And this will be in front of, this is the new site, in front of Interstate Office Products on Main. And then down onto Phillips Avenue, going north from 11th Street, west side, is Perfect Swing, Chris Powell. And again, he always submits sketches. And that will be a stainless steel, very beautiful sculpture when he gets it done. Stretch, done by Ben Hammond. He's our artist that does NFL Hall of Fame busts. So he's from Utah, fantastic artist. Great guy, too. Stretch. And then Eric Thorson from Montana, the Colt. This is one that the kids will be climbing on. And Zinger. We like to have figurative, representational sculptures, but we also like to have abstract. And Greg Johnson also, his second sculpture, he's from Georgia. Alter Ego, Pokey Park from Arizona, beautiful piece, love this piece. And she's been in Sculpture Walk many years. This will be in front of Prairie Star Gallery. And T-Rex, this is Jacques Frazee's daughter. She's about 16, and this sculpture was only supposed to be 6 feet long. Well, she got into it, and this is going to end up to be about 20 feet long. I don't know how we're going to put it on a pedestal. And I'm glad all the other city departments have looked at it, because it's, I don't know, we'll see what happens with it, but it's going to be a phenomenal piece. And she's still in high school up in Millbank. Effortlessly Buoyant will be across the street, south of the diner. Greg Mendez, 7 feet high, beautiful piece. Duster, Bobby Carlisle. This is just south of the diner. We have two of them together, smaller ones. Next to it is, we thought this was appropriate, Freeze and Rearing, done by Martha Pettigrew, and her husband Dal is a cousin of Frank and Richard. And then in front of the diner, we thought we'd have Lee Looning and Sherry Trebute's sculpture, World's Her Canvas, and that is all one piece. Now, I don't know how they're going to get the frame attached to her, but that's what it's, at least that's what I'm told. You know, sometimes these sculptures come different than how they're presented, but I hope this is the way it comes. Festival of Friends, this guy's a professor at Bowling Green College or University in Ohio. Sean Moran, and that will be by the fountain. This one's still in production, as you can see. Shohini Ghosh, trapeze, nice size sculpture. Egghead, new artist, Fieberger. We have about 16 new artists this year. She's from Twin Cities. Egghead, and she does a lot of egg sculptures like this. Pie High, another new artist from down in Nebraska, central Nebraska, I think. It's just a different piece, you know, and we like different sculptures. New artist, Fat Tire. We had one of these before. This is a different style, the older style bike. He's from Washington State. Yes, Martin Eichinger is from Portland, Oregon. He has two similar to this. And we have this one over on Main in front of First Dakota National Bank. And then coming back, actually this one dropped out. The artist sold it. He's from Connecticut. In fact, he was just here delivering his 2 sculptures. He's a college professor in Connecticut. He drove all the way a couple days ago, and we have his 2 sculptures in storage, but not this one. I'll show you later. Family Pride, Jerry McKellar, also from Washington State. It's a little smaller sculpture, but we have it in front of U.S. Bank. And then back by the Holiday Inn on Phillips, a kid's favorite, by Craig Schneider. He's from the Twin Cities. And that's a box of macaroni and cheese. I thought it was popcorn at first, but obviously it's macaroni. Off kilters in front of the Orpheum on Phillips. Going north, Orange Steel number 1 is over on Main in front of Fresh Produce at the corner of 6th and Main. Further north, Silence is up across from the Coliseum. And then also loss of signal. There's one missing here that I'll show you. But the loss of signals is over by, it's across the street from the Orpheum on the east side of the street. And now we're going over onto East 8th Street, and this is on the bike trail going to the bridge, the walk bridge across the river north of 8th Street. Evolution, and she's from Wyoming. Where we are, this is one that dropped out. Trojan Horse. Now this is a pretty good sized piece, as you can see, 12 feet high, 12 feet long. And I just got clearance. Actually, I had this one over at 8th and Railroad, but I don't think it's going to fit real well because they've got a couple other pieces there. And I just got clearance with Wells Fargo to put it in front of Wells Fargo Bank. So it'll kind of look like it's pulling the bank building. That'd be kind of cool. The Eagle and the Hawk, where do I have that one? I'm trying to think back. Oh, that's still on East 8th Street on the north side, over by the Frank Building. And then on guard, this is over in front of First National Bank Building. We're back on. Oration now, we have this over at 8th Street, so I'm back over at 8th Street. So you can see that I moved a few of them around. Walrus and Calf. Now this is a pretty good sized sculpture, 6 feet high, 9 feet wide, and this is 23 feet long. So you know where the couch is this year across from the diner? This is where we're going to put the Walrus and Calf, and kids will be climbing all over it. And the artist, Dolores Shalady, is probably 70 years old. Bathsheba, we're putting 3 sculptures together, backing up. This is in front of First Financial Bank too. First Financial, south of First National. Okay, next one is the Roost, which is further south. I think we've got that down in one of the 3 sculptures further south, along with Venus de Cello. That's kind of fun and interesting and unique, huh? Creative, Canadian artist. Taking attendance, Ken Newman is from Idaho. He was with us several years ago, took a break, now he's back, and this is in front of Skelly's. And then further south, in front of the coffee shop, is Isabella from Wayne Sulge. He's from Colorado. Running Ostrich, further south in front of Rayfeld's. Under Pressure. Now this one's going to change too. This is our Belgian artist. Last year his silver kind of looks like an alien in front of the State Theater. You've seen that one, the bright alien? Anyway, that cost $4,000 to get here. So the artist decided to travel here. He's from Belgium this year, buy his materials. He has a big family here in this area, and he's going to create this sculpture here. So we're going to have the media follow the creation of the piece. And it's 7 feet high. See, he's changed the size on me, too. It's 7 feet high, 7 feet wide. So it's a good size piece. Grief and Defiance, done by D. Clements. That will be in front of Shriver's, the smaller piece. And then also Aspen's will be in front of Shriver's, where the polar bear is now. And there will only be one of these trees there. Further south, this was our Italian artist that dropped out, unfortunately, couldn't afford to send it, and I can see why, because it's very expensive, and this was a bronze piece, would be very heavy. Accuracy is in front of in front of Dakota Bank. Muso's Thought, front of State Theater. That's a 13 foot piece. Grace in front of the coffee shop. Seeds of Consciousness in front of Bros Brother Restaurant. The zebra right now we're looking at in front of the federal courthouse, but that may change. And then further south on the corner, Rainmaker, this is at 13th and Phillips. Across the street, then down by Sushimasa, is Geometry of Space. And this is one of the sculptures that were dropped off a couple days ago. Big piece, big sculpture. Rebirth of ACI, done by Ray Cobalt. He's from Chicago. That's hard to see, that one. Cultural Pedestrians, done by Sue Quinlan, new artist. Red Raider, done by Del Pettigrew. And then in front of Minerva's Twilight. And then we have a few alternates that we had to go to. Grand Slam by Greg Johnson. Romance, Janine Young. Storms Brewing, Young. Gia's Breath by Martin Eichinger. Downtown in the McNeil, this is one that we selected, so this is in Sculpture Walk now. Reclining Cougar by Dolores Shalady. Vigilance. Warthog we did select. Saturnian. And we did select Harbinger. So we had 3 of these alternates that we had to go to replace the 3 that dropped out. I think that's it.
Great. Are there any questions for Jim? Any comments on the part of the council? None? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to the new display,
Thank you.
Jim. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And great job, by the way.
Thanks.
I did skip one item on the agenda, so I'll move back to it, and that's open discussion on the part of the council. Is there anything to come before the council at this time? Councilor Rolfing?
Yes, just as everyone probably knows, there will be no land use committee meeting this afternoon. No agenda items at this point, so we'll move on till next month.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Councilor Anderson?
Sioux Falls has always portrayed itself as a city of being a nice, safe city for people to come and live. Our homes are our sanctuaries, our kingdoms, a place where you should be able to go and feel safe. For one of our citizens last weekend, that was shattered. A young lady was murdered in her home over the weekend. Law enforcement has asked the public for any help, and I'm backing up that request. Any citizens that can help out with this, I ask you to call law enforcement and give them any knowledge that you know. It's just something that we can't accept in our city. Our homes are a place where we should feel safe. And unfortunately, the event happened over the weekend, and a young lady lost her life. She was a fighter. She was a breast cancer survivor and a very good person. I personally knew the person for 30 years and just felt that I needed to say something.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks. And our thoughts are with the family. Any other comments on the part of the council? There being none, this meeting is adjourned. Back at 7 o'clock for the council meeting.